Hello, Geshe.
Hello, Geshe.
Hi, Geshe.
Hi, Geshe.
Hello.
Hi, Geshe.
Hello.
Hello, Geshe.
Sorry to disturb your
Chatting.
conversation.
Talking about how hot it is.
Yes, because I was told, the people who live in the UK, they talk a lot about the weather.
All the time, yes.
What's
And
the
that is
weather
also-
like in India?
India here is last. I think we have quite good rain. The last 5, 6, 7 days, and very, very pleasant. Very, very pleasant. Not hot, also not very cold. Little bit of outside is a little bit wet, but it is very pleasant weather in the
Oh,
sun.
that's good.
Yeah, but I saw there are some, I saw some news in Bombay or that area have some flooding, but that
I was
is
going to say, that's it.
that is the nature of big cities and all those things. So anyway,
We had a flood in London on Monday, Geshe. It was just like the monsoon. It lasted about 2 hours, absolutely torrential rain.
yes,
Everybody's shops were flooded out, and yes,
yes. I
Well,
saw that.
Germany's in the worst state, isn't it?
Yes,
But-
Volker,
yes.
whereabouts are you based?
I live in Austria.
Austria. So you haven't had the floods in Germany then?
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any floods at all in Austria?
I heard there were some minor problems, but not too severe in other parts, not where I live.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So we will start. Today is our gathering, the class. Peter, are you going to mute everybody or?
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh yeah, thank you. Oh yeah. So we will start. This is our third class, reading this short Guru Yoga practice associated with the Geshe Tsongkhapa. And so before we start to continue to read the text, we will prepare ourselves, our motivation, intention to join the class, which is a very important part of this gathering, preparing our mental states to listen, to contemplate, and also, to put into practice. And the preparation here, as we all know, is done here, holding the mind, taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also, holding the altruistic awakened mind, bodhicitta. The taking refuge in Buddha or Buddhas as our mentors, teachers, and Dharma as actual means and methods to apply in our everyday lives, to experience, to actualize within ourselves, and Sangha as a spiritual friends, supporters while we are in the spiritual journey. And all the time, consciously or subconsciously relating ourselves our body, speech, and mind, relating to the three jewels in these three different ways, either consciously or subconsciously, is a very important part of the spiritual journey as a follower of the Buddha Dharma. As we have a habit to seek some kind of spiritual, blessings or inspirations when we have difficult times, when we have, when we face challenges. But when things are going well, then we tend to forget. We tend to, distract ourselves to some other things, and that is not really a good way to take refuge in three jewels. Some of the great Kadamba masters have said, so that means while we have good times or while we face difficult times, all the time to relate ourselves, to relate our activities, physical, verbal, and mental activities with the three jewels all the time. And that is what this, in the refuge line, the particular word, Sanji Chöra, Changju Pardo, saying, until enlightenment, until experiencing enlightenment. That time, explicitly, saying that time is something quite important. So, and also in the practice, for example, particularly in the Vajrayana practice, talking about three times a day and three times a night, to really recalling, the three jewels, and so on and so forth. And that is something important. Also, all the time, try to, when we take refuge in ourselves as a refuge seeker, in the refuge line, in these two lines, explicitly mention I, Changju Pardo, Dagni, Dak, I take refuge in three jewels. I go for refuge in three jewels. And that is something important to recall, And when we recall ourselves as a individual, then as a individuals, being in samsara, though, that we may, no doubt we have lots of, good times, pleasant times, joys and happiness from many different ways, but still, to remind ourselves, I am still in, under the power of afflictions and, the actions motivated by those afflictions and the consequences, the Dagni, when you recall that oneself as a refuge seeker or taker, whatever term that we use. Then the next one, important here is bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Again, no, not only when we say our daily practice, daily recitations, not only that time, of course that time is very important, but also every now and then during the day, directly, consciously and subconsciously, to recall, to hold bodhicitta. Many of us, it might be very difficult to have the completely cultivated bodhicitta, but at least we have heard many times from those great teachers. We have read many times from those great important texts, teachings, and I'm sure many of us have what you call contemplated and meditated on holding bodhicitta, so that all the time to remind ourselves, our activities of the body, speech, and mind, either saying just few lines of prayers, few malas of mantras, or doing some small thing, good thing, positive things to the others. And the result is not just one's own, the benefits. All the time, try to think, dedicate, try to think for other living beings, regardless of what kind of connection, that relationship that we have right here and now, but in the deep down our heart, all living beings are something very dear to us, very close to our heart. If it is possible to able to see their well-being is more important than one's own well-being. As His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, when we talk, of course, one's own well-being is important, but that is one person, just single individual. When we talk about others' well-being, then we are talking about millions, millions of living beings' well-being. So then, that way, when we think about, then we will see which one is more important or which one is more. But even if that is difficult, try to train ourselves, think the equal, one's own well-being and well-beings of all living beings are equally, important. So in that way, this, bodhicitta, as a follower of the Bodhisattva and the teachings, minor teachings, and many of us have received many Vajrayana teachings. And today's our, the text that we are reading, relate to Vajrayana teachings in certain extents. In that way, the holding the bodhicitta as one of the main motivations to participate in the gathering will be very, very useful. So with that, we will say the refuge and the bodhicitta lines together 3 times. Sanje chena soje chana mana chanjo bado dane kyamso chi dage jinso jibe sona dola penje sanje joba sanje chena soje chana chanjo bado dane kyamso chi dage jinso jibe sona manje dola penje sanje joba. Sanje Chödan Tsoji Chonama Chanju Pado Dane Jazo Che Dagi Che So Jibe Tsonama Ji Dola Penje Sanje Jobara Oh yeah, thank you. As Shantideva had clearly, said in his Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, the me to the tennis donecho chelito to the chene nieka mombetus nimalo. So this is, this verse, which is in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, in the first chapter, really to remind us this life that we have, human existence, human life. Quite often, the many great Indian masters, as well as some of those great Tibetan Buddhist masters, have called precious human life, precious human life. Nagarjuna has mentioned that, and here Shantideva, mentioned in this verse. So based on this human existence, we can really take ourselves and take other living beings, the other shore of the suffering, other shore of the suffering. Me tula tenis tunge chu chelito. That ship or boat, take us to the other side of the river, other shore of the ocean. Similar to that, this human existence that we have, have the potential, have the full potential, take us other side of the side of the samsara, and that is something we all try to remind ourselves, not to forget how this human existence, how great potential that it has, that is really something important. And this kind of human existence is not that easy to find in the future. That kind of here that Shantideva use the analogy of boat or ship, that kind of boat which has a full potential to take us to the other side of the samsara, other shore of the samsara. That kind of boat will not easily find in the future. Therefore, not to fall in sleep while you have this human existence. Here, not to fall in sleep in the sense, not to just spend our human existence, simply to fulfill, needs of this life, things and events. Of course, our basic necessities are important: food, shelter, medicine, friendship. All those are important. We have to work with to gain those. But at the same time, not to forget this human existence has more potential than just to fulfill this life's needs. And that's the meaning of not to fall, to sleep while we have found this precious human life. And that is something, something important for us to, to remind ourselves all the time. And that's why, these great Indian masters and Tibetan masters, explain this topic, this subject, precious human rebirth, almost at the beginning of the teaching, when they talk about gradual path to enlightenment, almost at the first topic, to remind ourselves how much potential that we have to take us, not just ourselves as an individual, but for many living beings, to take to the other side of the samsara, based on this human existence. And that is something important. So for that, the Buddha, historical Buddha, had taught many different levels of teachings to many different followers, and followers who have many different mental dispositions. And subsequent, the Buddhist teachers, those great practitioners, those great, the teachers have, elaborated, extended, added on according to the needs, according to the, so on and so forth. And so today's our reading is, a very important practice, particularly in the people who are practicing in the Vajrayana, but in general, as a spiritual seeker, as a the follower of the teachings of the Buddha, how to develop, how to build a constructive, a positive connection to those spiritual teachers, mentors, spiritual friends. That is very much the common features from the Sutrayana to all the way up to Vajrayana. Then, according to the different levels of the the teachings and practices, the emphasis are changed according to the different levels of the teachings and practices. And here, in the Vajrayana teachings, and practices, those spiritual masters, particularly that we have received, the initiations, deity initiations, instructions, commentaries, advice. Those spiritual masters are something, the center, pillar, or the centerpiece of our, what you call the spiritual journey, or one of the main parts of our spiritual journey to be, continue. And to do that, then as I mentioned in our first, class, reading, the Tibetan teachers have, put together as a Guru Yoga, very separate practice, from the deities. Although, in the deity yoga, there are, Guru Yoga is almost every deity yoga, Guru Yoga is within that. But, the Tibetan teachers somehow, for needs of the Tibetan, followers, set this separate teachings and separate practice called Guru Yoga, Lama Tsongkhapa. And all four, the Tibetan Buddhist traditions have, the Guru Yoga teachings and the Guru Yoga practice have slightly different names, titles, and different, at the central figure, different figures according to the one's own that lineage or the tradition that oneself is following. Otherwise, what you call the structure is more or less same. Of course, some are more elaborate. In for example, in the Gelug tradition, some Guru Yoga practice are very, very extensive. Some are very short, and same in my tradition, in Satya and Kagyu, the tradition. And so here our reading is relatively a short text that we are reading. And we started the text, reading the actual text last week, and that is the first verse of this text, the Ganden Hla Gyama, A Hundred Deities of the joyful land. That's what we are reading. And as I mentioned at the first day, the essence of the Guru Yoga, of course, one's own deep connection in the sense receive those initiations, instructions, advice, from the one's own spiritual teachers, mentors, with that, the deep connection, and then seeing one's own those spiritual masters or one's own, kind gurus, and the meditational deities that we have received initiations, and one's own the fundamental clear light mind, the subtle mind, seeing these three as a one entity, Moji, the Moji. So that is really the core practice in the Guru Yoga. Of course, initially, looking at the one's own teachers or gurus and the meditational deity, and then when the practice, what you call the make progress, then gradually, bringing one's own fundamental, the clear light mind as a part of the practice, and then seeing these three as a one entity, which we are going to talk that next Sunday, after the reading the actual text itself. And as we many of you know this very well, to do the Guru Yoga practice, first there is a preparation, preliminary practice, and this already I've mentioned, and I'm sure many of you know, that is taking refuge, generating bodhicitta, if it is possible, meditation on emptiness, for immeasurables, and with the, if it is possible, with the visualization of the refuge field, or the refuge, the field, then entering into the main practice, Guru Yoga practice, and here that is done. Start with invoking, the invocation, invoking. In this case, Geshe Tashi and his two main disciples, if it is possible. If not, just Tsongkhapa. Here in the text, it includes his two main disciples. So they are invited from the joyful land, where the Maitreya Buddha, from the joyful land where Maitreya Buddha, Atisha, and all those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are actively, giving teachings, having, dialogues, and so on and so forth, from the Maitreya's heart, with the, in an aspect of, pure clouds, and then that is really creating the space where we, invite Tsongkhapa and his two disciples on his right, just up, a little bit older in terms of the age, and on his left, Ketu. But if not just Tsongkhapa. But here, of course, the text is written by this great master, because that writer, the writer of this text himself had a direct connection, received teachings from Tsongkhapa. So that is what he had written in relation to his own teacher, Tsongkhapa. And here we can, in the aspect of Tsongkhapa, we can also visualize, one's own spiritual teacher, invite one's own spiritual teacher, in front of us, in the aspect of Tsongkhapa in this case, but we can, not necessarily in the aspect of Tsongkhapa, in the aspect of one's own spiritual teacher. That also will be fine, because here is the Guru Yoga, Lama Tsongkhapa. So our direct that receiving initiations in what's called the oral transmission and instructions are those spiritual masters that we have direct connection. We can visualize them, or we can visualize them in the aspect of Tsongkhapa, something which is embodiment, of all those spiritual masters. That also will be done in here. So that first verse is the invocation, which we have already done. Now then the second verse in the text that we have is on the page 2. Second verse start from the main, the commentary that I'm reading by the 7th or 8th Dalai Lama Kalsang Gyatso. As the text is divided into 3 main outlines. First one is the invocation that we have done, that first verse. Now from second verse is the second main outline, that is, the Sokshin Chen Tangpa, tell a Tsok Sakpa. Then relation to the, inviting the merit field, it is called, that we have invited in front of us, in the aspect of Tsongkhapa, nature of one's own spiritual master, or masters, in all in one, in one figure. And then Tsok Sakpa. Related to that, then, the creating the merit, enhancing the merit, relation to the merit field. In this case, the visualization of one's own guru in the aspect of Tsongkhapa. Now, this is again very common, as we have seen in when we were reading, King of Prayer, and the first part of the King of Prayer, the Samjö Malam that we read last year, those 7 limb or 7 branch practice or 7 limb practice, Yangla Dumba. So Yangla Dumba, there are 7 practices. And this is really same in either we do in a very extensive Guru Yoga practice, or we do very short Guru Yoga practice, or deity practice. In the Guru Yoga practice, the main activity with the Guru, with the spiritual master that we have invited in front of us is, performing these 7 practices, and quite often these 7 practices are called Soksakpatang Vachamba. That means enhancing the merit and purifying the negativities. And in these 7 activities, physical, verbal, and mental activities, with the association with the merit field, what's going to happen, and that will enhance our the merit, and also they will eliminate or purify the negativities. Soksak Dipjang in Tibetan, Soksak Dipjang. In certain extents, these 7 practices, like in general, the sequence, as you know, when we are reading the King of Prayer, the prostration, offerings, confessing, the rejoicing, requesting the teachings, and requesting to teachers to stay with us, not to show into parinirvana, and the dedication. Those are the 7 practices. And as many of you have had joined the reading of King of Prayer, and we spent quite some time going through, the verses, and that in the King of Prayer, those verses explaining these 7 practices, and those that is one of the most extensive, what you call the explanation or the extensive, the verses relation to the 7 prayer, or some other, for example, So I will now here the sequence is a little bit different from the King of Prayer. And here the first out of 7, first one is, as put it in here, heading, request to remain for a long time. So out of the 7, the first verse is requesting, in this case, in the aspect of Tsongkhapa, in the nature of one's own spiritual masters that we have received initiations, the oral transmissions, and advice and instructions to practice, Buddha Dharma and the deity practice. So requesting them to remain, with us for long time. And that is here the first verse out of, the first out of the 7, first one. And it is done with the the offering, with the offering, creating the what you call the thrones, visualizing the throne, which I have mentioned briefly last week when we invite Geshe Tashi and the 2 disciples from the in front of us, where on the top of this beautiful white cloud, and they are sitting on a thrones, and that's what here and this is offering thrones, visualizing and offering or visualizing thrones and the lotus and the sun and moon disk. Creating this also creates, what you call the symbolically showing, saying to stay long time. For example, if we have invited a guest, then if we, ask or request to the guest to sit, and if we have prepared nice place to sit, and that is very similar to here. And some of you may know this, traditionally when we offer, long life prayer to the spiritual masters, among the many different things to offer, with that ritual, one of the offering thing is, this, the Vajra, Vajra, they call the Vajra cushion. And that is, some of you know, in front of the throne, there's this colorful 4 Vajra, that painted or, on a cloth. These days beautifully in the brocade. So that is here the first line. It says, saying that in the sky before me, on a line throne. Here, in the sky here also can refers to, the space in front of us. Also here, sky also refers to, on the, empty or absence, the nature of inherently existence. Absence or empty nature of inherently existence. And that is also sometimes the sky, in the sky. Sometimes visualization, meditation also involved with that. Although we are inviting and creating and offering this beautiful throne, everything what we offer, everything what we arrange, all are arranged in the sphere of understanding of emptiness. And that is also, there is this meaning of in the sky before me. It is not just the empty space in front of you, in front of us, also having that kind of, the understanding, everything that we are going to perform, that we are going to offer, that we are going to, what you call the perform, all these are going to take place within the sphere of empty of inherent existence. And not just in that nature, but our understanding is also in that nature. We perform that. And this meaning of, in the sky, that's also before me. on a line throne. Again, line, as we saw when we are reading the King of Prayer, quite often we came across, this animal line. It is, if you remember, those 4 Minjikpashi, 4 fearlessness, the quality, one sets of the qualities of the enlightened beings, fully enlightened beings, that one sets of those, great qualities is those 4 fearlessness. And these 4 lines, upholding the throne is symbolizing, the qualities of 4 fearlessness. Cindy, then lotus and the moon disk that we have mentioned. My perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. So this kind of very, delightful aspects. Not, as I mentioned the other day, not in a form of painting, not in a form of statue, but as a real person, real living being, sitting on that throne, on that throne. So here, as many of us have read and I'm sure meditated on, for example, in the Geshe Tashi, the teachings on Lamrim, there's a section called, sections to explain how to relate ourselves with our spiritual masters, and how to what kind to cultivate deep sense of connections with the understanding of kindness, with the understanding of their great qualities. And those are something important here when we say my perfect pure Guru. The perfect in the sense to show the spiritual path. As I mentioned the other day, the historical Buddha clearly stated in his first teachings in the Four Noble Truths, when he said, with regard to the Four Noble Truths that I have mentioned, that I explained, if that is correct, then I will claim as an enlightened being. With regard to the Four Noble Truths that I have taught, is not correct, then I will not claim as an enlightened being. So, those are something very, very helpful understanding of when we talk about perfect, and when we, similar to that, Dhammakirti, this great Indian logicians, when he talked about the historical Buddha Gautama as a trustworthy person, as a valid person, in the second chapter of the Paramana Vadika, he clearly stated, whether Gautama Buddha see long distance or not, or what he is able to show, what he is able to, demonstrate, he is able to show the Four Noble Truths, and that is, here we need to think about under this line, my perfect, pure Guru smiles with delight. Geshe Lama Gyebe Zumgarchen. Delight, because of our spiritual masters, the deep commitments, deep what you call the great compassion, loving kindness. And in that sense, that's also a symbol of smiles with delight. Third line, supreme field of merit for my mind of faith. So this spiritual master, or the embodiment of all those spiritual masters that we have visualized, that we have invited in front of us, in this case, in the aspect of Geshe Tsongkhapa, is here it's called supreme field of merit. Supreme field of merit. All those teachers, those spiritual masters, these are in a supreme field of merit in the sense when we relate to them, when we associate to them, receiving teachings, receiving initiations, receiving instructions, advice, then we receive tremendous sense of, not just blessings in the sense, transformation. Our small transformation, change that we are able to make from the very egoistic, self-centered, from there to more, altruistic, and so on and so forth. That kind of small change that we are able to do that. That is, due to the kindness of those spiritual masters that we have met, that we have received, what you call the teachings, instructions, and one of the very amazing, master who wrote another Guru Yoga in Guru tradition, another Guru Yoga. Many of you know, in English quite often translated saying Guru Puja or Guru Offering. They're quite more extensive than this Ganden Hla Gyama. In that, there's a section to, make supplication to the spiritual masters or gurus. In that supplication section, there's one verse. Within that verse, I'm quoting just last two verses. Deshe kusum jengi kolone tabwe gyudu jawe chok tamel tsugi dowa tensebe yangwe tuji chema soade. Tamil tsugi dowa tensebe. So Tamil, those spiritual masters that we have fortunately have met, have received teachings, instructions, and so on and so forth, advice. All those spiritual masters come in an aspect of ordinary, like us, such as the historical Buddha himself, such as Geshe Tsongkhapa, such as our current those great teachers. They were born in this planet, similar to us, have those very similar aspects of us. So showing in this line, in this last third line, saying Tamil Tsugi Dowa Tensebe. They are leading the sentient beings, showing their ordinary aspect, ordinary in the sense like ordinary living beings, human beings, not showing in an enlightened aspect, but showing in an aspect of ordinary beings, then leading the living sentient beings. So that is something also important for us to remember. And also, that is supreme field of merit. Supreme field of merit. Supreme field of merit in the sense from these spiritual masters. They, showing those teachings, giving advice, being with us. Due to that, we are able to understand the teachings of the Buddha. We are able to understand teachings of those great past masters. We are able to do these very amazing, helpful practices. And due to that, there are little bit transformation in our mental continuum. That even though it might be very small, but still it is transformation. And that is due to those, those great teachers. And in that sense, supreme field of merit for my mind of faith. When we understand that, then we will have tremendous sense of grateful, tremendous sense of, the sense of closeness, sense of conviction, closeness. And that is what here, for my mind of faith. Please abide for 100 eons to spread the teachings. And that is the last line saying, to give us the teachings for a long, long period of time. And that is something very important, for us, to receive teachings. We have to create the courses. We have to create the courses. And this we all know. Without creating the courses. So creating the courses means, like this kind of, mentally making this kind of prayer. And physically preparing to receive teachings. So this is the first one. Now, out of the 7, this in here, the first one is, to request remain for a long time. Now, the second here is the prostration. Prostration. Sheshe chungu yang lo zhutu. Gesan na we genyu lekshe song. Tagwe begi famen zebe gu. Tongde tembe Ganden Hla Gyama. So now the prostration, as you know, can be done with the body, speech, and mind. Traditionally we say prostration is mainly refers to the body posture. Full length prostration, the half length prostration, or with the head, just head bowing prostration. And verbally, saying, praising the qualities of our teachers, saying their kindness they have shown to us, and qualities of saying qualities of their, praising their qualities, and that is, making prostration with the speech, mentally recalling, recollecting, remembering their kindness, their great qualities, and that is, from our side, with the body, speech, and mind making prostrations. As you remember, one of the purpose of, the practicing prostrations is to really to eliminate, to minimize our arrogant mind, our very arrogant, very holding negative pride, to eliminate that. And here that is done. First line, recalling the Guru's the qualities, mental qualities. And the second line is recalling the qualities of the speech. And the third line, the recalling the qualities of the body, physical body, and then the fourth line saying directly seeing or hearing or remembering. With all these, seeing one's own teachers, hearing one's own teacher's voice, teacher's names, or recalling one's own teachers, spiritual masters. Through that, bodily make the prostrations, verbally praise their qualities, mentally recall, remember, think their great qualities. And that is what here, it is done. And in this case, the body, the mental quality is here, it's mentioned, your holy mind has the intelligence that understand and the full extent of the objects to be known, In other words, there's nothing that our teachers, our spiritual masters, not known, not to understand, not to know, in terms of the freeing from samsara, to lead us to full enlightenment, full enlightenment. There isn't a single thing, single point that they do not know, that lead us, to teach us to go to attain full enlightenment. So they have that kind of full, complete knowledge, intelligence or knowledge or understanding and experience, to lead us to enlightenment. In that context, their knowledge is complete and full. That is mental. Your holy speech, with its excellent explanation, is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. So that when we hear the teachings from our teachers, there is a sense of pleasantness, particularly in this case also the meaning, the meanings, and that will come when our understanding of the Dharma really make progress. If our understanding of the Dharma, for example, if our teacher, one of our teachers teach us on the topic of emptiness, if we are not interested in emptiness, that no matter how accurately, no matter how pleasantly, no matter how precisely, and with all the skills that he or she teaches us, and we won't feel pleasant. That we won't feel pleasant. That's in terms of the topic, subject, and so on and so forth. So this, very much depends on when it says is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. When our spiritual masters, teach the Dharma, that when hearing those lines, those voices, to really feel something very soothing, very pleasant, very sort of, what you call here, as mentioned here, good fortune, then we will feel, I'm very fortunate. This is what I'm seeking. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need. This is that I'm yearning, longing, and now I'm receiving. I'm hearing those teachings. And there is a tremendous sense of pleasantness. And here the ornament, that is the, talking about very pleasant to hear. That, so the in terms of the speech and quality of the speech, and your holy body is radiantly beautiful with a glory renowned. Those spiritual masters, those spiritual teachers, when we really start to see, start to feel, start to experience their qualities of their knowledge, their experiences, qualities of their teachings, and the qualities of their physical, present. And that's what here, through that, then here the last line, to you who are meaningful to see, hear, remember, are prostrate. And that is also one of the reasons, we have this, for example, we recite Buddha Shakyamuni mantra, Om Muni Mani Ma Muni So, don't we? And that is one of the reasons to really to have the cultivate sense of closeness. And there are, some the spiritual masters mantra recitation. Many of you may recite His Holiness Dalai Lama's, the mantra recitation. So that is here, the second out of the 7 prostrations. Then the third, which is here, is the offering. Yung chun nazo medokdam, tishim dubu nase tishapso, mosham yudu, churin gazodi, sonam shincho chobabu. So now making offerings. Whether we make offerings to our gurus, our spiritual masters or not, it will make no difference to them. To the spiritual masters, whether we, from the spiritual master's side, whether we make offerings or not, it will make any difference. The making offering is for our own purpose, as same as the, making prostrations. That is for our own sake. And here, as you remember, one of the main reasons making offerings is really to tackle our grasping, attachment, grasping, unable to let go, holding even some of the past memories, So that is here one of the main purposes of making offerings. And that is what here it is called, enhancing merits. Performing these when, our attachment reduces, that is the merit. When attachment reduces, and eventually what you call get rid of from our mental continuum, and that is the merit. So that's here, when we talked earlier, we saw merit field, perform these offerings, to, in this case, spiritual master, and performing that, and, reducing attachment, grasping. Mm? And here, in terms of the offering, those 7 sets of offerings, the drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incense, lights, So these are the, traditionally make offerings to the, guests in India, in the traditional, still they do, when they invite guests, that's what they do. And it is also done in here. The main, what you call the purpose of this, whether we make a beautiful bunch of flower to make offering or not to the, to the spiritual masters, it is really something mental aspects, mental engagement is really something important in here. Why the guests are offer flowers, incense, and something to eat, something to drink, because these are guests. And similar to here, make these offerings, offerings such as flowers, incense, buttermilk, and so forth, because the to whom that we are making offering, is in this case our spiritual masters, spiritual guru, and that spiritual our masters are some extremely important in our spiritual journey for many different ways, and that's what here, again it is mentioned, you can see in the last line, I offer to you the supreme field of merit, supreme field of merit. So this, the water to drink, water to cleanse the feet. There's one beautiful, what you call the paragraph or lines, 8 or 9 lines. So these beautiful, the water bowl offerings are in the aspect of water bowls, but in the nature of my, receiving those extensive teachings, hearing those extensive teachings in the aspect of water bowls. All those, the good qualities, such as love, compassion, altruism, they all manifest into beautiful flowers in their middle. All the ethical practices, in the aspect of incense. This is very, when we encounter those people who have amazing good conduct, ethical way of living, there is a tremendous sense of peace, pleasantness when we encounter them. And similar to that smell, nice smell, incense burning, smell that lead us to that place. So ethical, practice in the aspect of incense to offer, and they tabajazu chön kuniti yöndemi tsurim tubetin sherab döme. It's going. Yeah, it's not here. Tobajazu chön kuniti yöndemi tsurim tubetin sherab döme teba pigeon. There's one line which I'm missing. So, then the sherab döme, the wisdom, the knowledge in the aspect of Batalam, in the aspect of Batalam that we offer. In the sherab döme teba pijuso, the conviction, the faith, conviction in the spiritual master, conviction in the Dharma, in the aspect of what you call the light, scented water, faith, conviction in the aspect of scented water. So, like that, though have this external aspect of water, flower, incense, butterland, the scented water, and offering to something to eat. But these all are in the aspect, in the aspect of that, but in the nature of those good qualities, or those good qualities manifest or in the aspect of this, then make offerings. And it is also here oceans of cloud-like offerings. It is not just one piece, it is not just few pieces, but fill entire space. And some are actually arranged, and some are mentally imagined. Mosham Yidu, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, are offered to you the supreme field of merit. So, that kind of. So if we are able to offer, in the sense to listen the teachings as fast as possible, that is real offering to our spiritual master. Our spiritual masters really like to see our Dharma understanding, Dharma knowledge really enhance. And the enhancement of Dharma knowledge, Dharma experiences will come initially hearing, listening, reading. If we do that, that is offering, and it is in the aspect of water bowls, water, clean water. And, those our spiritual masters, teachers, really would like to see within us have those qualities: loving kindness, great compassion, bodhicitta. Those are the qualities, qualities that we should nurture, that we should cherish, that we should, enhance. And if we do that, then our spiritual master, that is the offering. That is the offering to our spiritual master. And that offering is in the aspect of beautiful flowers, beautiful flowers. Sharap tabajatu chönkun nekil yönde meto tsudim dubutin tsudim, and to have ethical lives, to live ethically, and that is in what our spiritual masters like to see, and that is offered in a form of to put in a form of incense, like a cloud of, what you call the smoke of incense, have a very beautiful, nice smell. Share up, share up domain, wisdom. Our spiritual masters really want us to cultivate wisdom. By cultivating wisdom, the ignorance will be eliminated. And that's what they really why they are teaching us. If we do that, and that is really offering. Share of domain, conviction, deep sense of conviction in law of cause and effect, deep sense of conviction in the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that is, if we do that, that's offering to the spiritual master, and it is done in the aspect of, what you call the scented water and so forth. So that is the third practice out of 7. The first one is to stay with us for a long time. Second one is prostration, and third one is offering. Then the fourth one here, confessing. Kanshi tongme tune sapai, lunga yesu, miki chiki tang, kebara tomba sungi, miduncho, nini joba takwe, source of sha. As you know, to confess our negativities is done always with the 4 powers. Power of base or foundation, power of regret, power of application of remedy, and the power of promising not going to commit again. So with these 4 powers, then perform the purification or confessing. And this is all the time, whether we are performing confessing in the Sutrayana context, or whether we are confessing or purifying within the context of highest yoga tantra. The 4 forces or 4 powers must be present. Whether we do elaborate visualization of Vajrasattva, with a concert or not, these 4 powers are very, very important, and we all know. We have discussed this when we are reading, the King of Prayers. And here it is beautifully captured in this verse, saying that whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, that. So our virtues are also done with our body, speech, and mind, and also our non-virtues. Non-virtues are also, committed through our body, speech, and mind. That's why in the Buddhist terminology, these 3, our body, speech, and minds are called 3 doors. 3 doors. Why they are called 3 doors? Doors are the entry to the, to the room or to the house. Similar to that, with these 3, either body, speech or mind, or all these 3 together, we can perform positive things, or we can perform negative things. And positive or negative, virtues or non-virtues are not only one, either body or speech or mind. They can be performed from all those 3, the body individually or all 3 together. So that's what here it says, whatever non-virtues of the body, speech, and mind, especially those opposed to the three vows. So three vows are, the what you call the individual vows, sosotabe tomba. Individual vows are here. Sometimes people use the term monastic vows. It is not only monastic vows. Lay people also have vows to be taken. The 8 lay precepts. 8 lay precepts. If you people who are familiar with the Theravadan tradition, quite often, the abbot or the teacher at the beginning of the day, he or she will give those 8 lay vows. 8 lay vows. And then, of course, you can edit monastic vows. So 3 vows are, say, the individual vows. I will use that. Sosotabe tomba. It is called sosotabe tomba. And in there, there's also lay vows. In the individual vows, individual vow, there's a lay vow, there's a monastic vows. Within the monastic vows, there's a novice vows and fully ordained vows. So these 3 vows are referring to individual vows, individual liberation vows, sosotabe tomba, then bodhisattva vows, then tantric vows. Many of us have taken all three. And that's what here saying opposed, especially those opposed to the 3 vows. 3 vows. But also, in this case, the time. Okay. So those, especially those 3 vows that I have collected from beginningless time. And this word, beginningless time, is something quite important. Even if we're unable, people who are unable to really to think many lives in the past, even in this lifetime, in terms of the unwholesome non-virtues, either consciously or many of us unconsciously, habitually, out of our habit, many non-virtues. Individually, those non-virtues might be very insignificant, but by the numbers, from the numbers point of view, then they become very significant, significant. So that's that I have collected from the beginningless time. I confess each and everyone with the apparent regret from my heart. Each and everyone, this, so sharp, because each and everyone is mentioned in the, because earlier in the second line, there is, it says, especially those opposed to the 3 vows, opposed to the 3 vows, so to confess that vows that we have broken in the Vajrayana, what you call the vows that we have taken, to confess that is quite different when we do the confessing to break bodhisattva vows. And when we do the confessing and the breaking vows of the bodhisattva, it is also different when we confess individual liberation vows, individual liberation vows. So that's why this line, last line, saying I confess each and every one. So, for example, somebody who have taken all 3 vows, then we need to confess, individually. It is not complete. We have confess the vows that we have broken, individual liberation vows, just confessing that. But that confessing will not purify if we have confessed, if we have broken bodhisattva vows. If we do the confessing bodhisattva vows, but we have taken the Vajrayana vows too, tantric vows too, but if we're not, just confessing bodhisattva vows will not restore the bodhisattva, the Vajrayana vows that we have broken, if we have broken. So that's why this line, saying each and confess each and everyone with the regret. And here, out of the 4 powers, the regret, the second power is mentioned. Other 3 are not directly, not explicitly mentioned, but it is important to have all the 4 powers. Oh yeah, so now we are approaching to 1.5 hour our duration, and I think we will leave it here. Yeah? We have enough, time next Sunday to complete this part, and after the finishing this Ganden Hla Gyama, I would like to talk a little bit on the Lama Tsongkhapa prayer, Mixama, and with that, a brief meditation that we'll do next Sunday. Oh yeah. Thank you. So now, prayers to 21 tongue prayers. Om Je Je Ma Pama Doma La Cha Ze Cha Ze Doma Nyu Ma Pa Mo Jene Ge Je Lo Da Da Ma Jiden Sum Gun Chu Je She Je Kesa Je Wa Le Ne Jo Cha Ze Dong Ge Da Wa Gun Do Kan Wa Jene Zi Be She Kama Dong Da Cho Ba Na Ma Ra Do Che We Ra Ba Ra Chanze Sengwe Chune Je Je Peme Chane Nabara Je Jemba Zundu Kado Shewa Seba Samde Ju Nye Chanze Teishin Shebe Zodo Taye Nabara Jawa Jema Malu Paro Jemba Tobe Jawe Seji Shindu Dema Chanze Duda Rahon Yige Duda Choda Namga Kama Jigden Dombo Shanti Nende Loba Meba Guba Nema Chanze Jaji Mela Tsamba Longla Nazo Wanju Chema Jombo Rola Jisa Namanda Nijun Soji Dune Tema Chanze Jeje Chadan Pedi Paro Togo Rado Joma Egon Yenjan Shakti Nende Mebara Toba Shindu Parama Chanze Duri Jiba Chenpo Digi Pao Nabara Jom Chuji Shene Chonye Denze Tao Tamje Malu Sem Chanze Kunjo Sumzen Chaji Seme Toga Nabara Jema Malu Choji Kolo Jembe Rangi Eje Sonama Chema Chanze Rabdo Kawa Jebe Ojen Veji Chanwa Bema Sheba Rabshi Dodara Dudan Jigden Wando Sema Chanze Saji Kyongwe Tsona Tamje Guba Nima Nyema Chonye Yewa Yige Hongi Pongba Tamje Nabara Joloma Chanze Dawe Dombo Oje Yemba Tamje Shindo Barama Rebe Chene Waba Mene Tabare Shindo Werava Zema Chanze Gebe Tama Meta Barwe Tingwe Wene Nema Yeja Yungumukune Korobe Daye Pone Nabara Joma Changze Sashi Ngala Chage, Tiji Nujing Shabji Dongma, Chonye Jenze Yige Hongi, Rimba Dumbo Namne Gema, Changze Dema Gema Shema, Nyangen Deshin Ju Nyema, Soa Omda Yanda Dembe, Diwa Chenbo Jomba Nyema, Changze Gune Korwa Gawe, Daye Lune Nambara Gema, 이게 주변 안에 그 리바 홍래 도마니마 창제 둘이 샴닌다 홍게 남배 사변니마 레라멘다 라담베 지겐 숨나 예와니마 창제 화이 소이 남배 레다 다진 창나나마 따라 니주 폐제예 도나 마르 파네세마 창제 화이 손음제 하다 면지대마 군의 고자가와 지게 저라면은 바세마 창제니마다와 제베 진이 보라라세마 하라니주 도다라이 신도 타베림네세마 창제니 som남괴베 시외 토다양다데마 드다로라니준선 정바도에 랍초니마 자외하게 되버데다 창제와네 니조자 개와디 지오근 선나마 예셰 초조신 선나마 예셰 레종베 담바구니 토바라쇼 창조 샘초 렘보체 마제 파나마제 조제 제바냐바 메바야 코네 공도 배와라쇼 가레라웨 코레 신가마데 펜단데와 마르 종에네 제레 세와 덴제 자조이 샤베 세데 파도 덴조로 제 Oh yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will
Thank you
see
so
you
much.
next Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.